Rather lads, welcome back to Cossy podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. I'm gonna be diving into the latest around Arsenal transfers. I mean, it's not a big transfer like window that's coming up in January, but it looks like there is a big story and there is a big guy that will be all over the transfer strategies of a couple of clubs, especially in London, Chelsea. Arsenal are all looking at this guy, and the name is Ivan Toney. Arsenal would love to sign a striker. I think it's part of our phase 5. Is this going to happen in January? It's a big question whether we will get a striker in January. And also, it's a big question whether we will need a striker by January, right? So we've had the conversation in the channel. Do Arsenal need a striker? Do we need a number 9 like Ivan Toney? And is Ivan Toney actually the number 9 that we need? There's so many questions on this guy. I like him. I really, really do. I think he provides something very different if Arsenal were to sign him. But is he the answer? Is he the answer to the problem? Is he the number 9, the classy guy, the Victor Osimhen, a hurricane? Does he have that kind of, heart to go and deliver hurricane numbers? Has he got the kind of heart to go and deliver the Robert Lewandowski numbers, right? So Ivan Toney is one of the players we're looking at, and according to Fabrizio Romano, Arsenal and Chelsea have both asked for the information and data about this deal. We are all tracking the same player. We're all trying to talk to Brentford about Ivan Toney, about the possibility of signing him in January. I'm going to be giving you the whole update about Ivan Toney and why potentially he could actually be on the move in January, and why I think he might not play for Brentford ever again, right? We're also going to be talking about prices because we're hearing £80 million being asked by Brentford, and clubs like Arsenal and Chelsea are preparing bids in the region of 60-70 million. So what's going to happen with this one? I want your thoughts. I want your involvement in the comment box below. First and foremost, I would love to greet you in the comment box below. So good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the channel. Let me know where you're watching in from. I'm broadcasting this live from East Africa. So let me know where you're actually watching from. Are you in East Africa? Are you in Africa? Are you in South Africa? Are you in the west parts of Africa? Are you in the US? Are you in the UK? Let me know. This is the internet. It's absolutely global. So let me know where you're watching from, and you could also just type good morning in the chat and let me know where you're watching. So Toney is top striker, and Arsenal have been interested in Ivan Toney, I think, for 4 years now. There've been that kind of interest, and Arsenal have always admired the profile of the player. However, we've never made a substantial and significant move to go and sign him. And I wouldn't say Arsenal have really done any kind of background work on this deal. It's just about interest, the same as Chelsea, the same as any other club that would be interested in Ivan Toney. So, do you think Ivan Toney is the best option for Arsenal at number 9? That is the question I'm going to pose to you. I'm not going to say, do you like him? Because many of you tell me you like him because he scored 20 goals last campaign. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Arsenal are looking at him. But the question I want to ask you in the comment box below, is he the right profile? Is he the right number 9? Is the right player for Arsenal to go, well, we're spending 80 million on a goal scorer that can win us the Premier League. We're spending 80 million on a goal scorer that can compete with Kylian Mbappe, Robert Lewandowski, Vinicius Jr., Mohamed Salah, Hurricane in the Champions League, right? So that is the conversation we're having this morning. Absolutely. If you like the love shows, hit the like button. They are back on your screens, and the response on the channel literally shows that you love them, and I'll keep them coming, definitely. So make sure you're hitting the like button just to confirm that you like the live shows, and they should not go anywhere, right? Let's get to see what some of you are saying in the chat before we get into the discussion. Dako says, good morning, bro. I'm Mohammed, watching in live from East Africa. From the eastern part of Sierra Leone, actually. That's West Africa, in the regional capital called Kenema. Well, good morning to you, people in Sierra Leone. Alicia says 80 million is too much for Ivan Toney. I don't agree with that. We're going to be going into that discussion as well. Charles says he's in Uganda. Good morning, people in Uganda. Michael says, Kamali, Uganda. Good morning. I was in eastern Uganda a few days ago. It's a beautiful part of the country, isn't it? Taiwo Sofela says he's watching in from France. Good morning. Achiobe, good morning, bro. Watching in from West Africa, to be precise, in Timbuktu, right? Okay, I got that one right. Martinez says, good morning, Cossy. Thanks for the update. I'm watching in from Kampala. Good morning to people in Kampala. David says Victor Osimhen is the king. We will talk about Victor Osimhen, and I really think Victor Osimhen could change the dimension of the deal and what Arsenal really want in a centre forward, but also who we signed, because the disrespect Victor Osimhen is getting from Napoli could mean that there is only one way to solve that, and that could be Victor Osimhen leaving Napoli as well. Okay, so we'll talk about Victor Osimhen. Sese says, good morning. I'm watching in from Celarian as well. Toney is better, says Michael. And David Akinola is watching in from London. Emmanuel is in Kenya. Emmanuel says Victor Osimhen is good, and he is the better striker for Arsenal to sign. Right, so let's get into the discussion, right? I will get to more of your comments later on. Fabrizio Romano, recently, the story has been there, right from the closure of the transfer window, that Arsenal will be looking at the next phase, which is phase 5 of the transfer window, and that phase is going to be signing a centre forward. Charles Watts, formerly at Goal, formerly at Football.London as well, gave us a huge update, and he said Arsenal are looking to spend some huge amounts of money, but if they're going to spend upwards of 80 million, upwards of 90 million, if they're going to stretch their budget like we saw Arsenal stretch their budget this summer, then it's going to be about Arsenal signing a centre forward. They want a centre forward, and they're convinced that the next phase should be about signing a big striker. Look, when I saw the stories, I definitely knew. I really thought Ivan Toney was going to be linked with Arsenal at some point in time. And it's barely a month, guys. It's barely a month ever since the window shut down, and we are already in the saga of who Arsenal is going to sign at centre forward. So Fabrizio Romano this week has come out to confirm that there are two clubs that have asked for information from Brentford about Ivan Toney, and those two clubs are Arsenal and Chelsea. So Arsenal are ready to pay about £60 million for Ivan Toney. Chelsea have not disclosed what they are willing to pay. They have not disclosed how much they want to go. But at least we know Chelsea under Todd Boehly will smash the transfer record. They will smash the bank. And it's not the first time that we have had Chelsea and Arsenal in the same battle. Chelsea and Arsenal battling over the same player. And we know what can happen. When Arsenal table 60, there's a possibility that Chelsea will go as high up 80, as high up 90, or even as high as 100 million, because it's Todd Boehly. It's his money, and he can spend it. And he's got that, loophole in the system where he can spread contracts and losses and costs over 8 years, over 9 years. And that's what he's done with Enzo Fernandez, with players like Mikhailo Modric, Chukwuemeka, and all these other things. And that's why Chelsea are safe, right? But Ivan Toney, 80 million, right? So Fabrizio says it's going to be higher than 60 million. If Arsenal want to sign him, it's going to be higher than 60 million. If Arsenal want to sign him, it's going to be higher than 70 million, because Brentford are looking at a fee in the region of 80, 90 million. So that's where the conversation is this morning. Is the profile that we need, and also should we pay 80 million for Ivan Toney? There's so many other strikers out there, but we're gonna be talking about the advantages of Ivan Toney and why I think, to be honest, he would be a very good investment. If a club like Arsenal, if a club like Chelsea decided to invest 80 million or 75 million in Ivan Toney, he would be a smart investment, but then he would also be some kind of risk. So let's start off with the price. Brentford have set this price for two reasons. One, Ivan Toney comes back slightly after January. He comes back April, right? February, right? And that means that during that time, there is a lot of football for clubs to play. I think Brentford will still be in the FA Cup. There's a possibility that Brentford will still have questions of whether they will have nailed it in the top 10. If you're Thomas Frank and you're Brentford, I think that should be your target. You should be looking to finish in the top 10 every single campaign. They've got the minerals, they've got the talent, they've got the manager, and they've got the facilities as well. So by February, they want to pick up some 15 more points towards the end of the campaign. I presume that by February, Brentford will have picked up around maybe 40 points, right? So they'll be looking at that maybe 50 points, 55 mark to the end of the campaign. I think they have set 80 million to just make just to scare potential suitors away, right? They're looking at 80 million. They have set 8 million with the hope that if they still want him come February, right? If Johan Wissa and Brian Buemo are not as reliable at the moment, then they would love to keep him until the end of the campaign, and then they can replace him at the end of the campaign. So it's a smart move by Brentford. Set 80 million as an asking price, and when Arsenal come in and they say we don't have 80 million in January, you can tell them, how about you come back in the summer? And when Chelsea come and they say we have 80 million in the in January, how about you say, well, we want 90 now because you can pay the 80. We want 90. So I think it's going to also be about the willingness of Brentford to sell. Now, Thomas Frank was speaking about the future of Toney, and he said, well, you never know what's going to happen. If the right price comes in January, we will definitely sell. So I think they're open to selling. They were always open to selling Ivan Toney, even in the summer, right? So after scoring 20 goals, they looked at that as the perfect opportunity to cash in on him. And they're so unlucky, Brentford. They're absolutely very, very unlucky that during the period of time where Ivan Toney could have been 100 million, could have given them 200 million probably, he was banned. Just imagine Harry Kane at 30 going for 100 million to Bayern. And then you factor into these factors. Ivan Toney is younger than Kane. Ivan Toney scored 20 Premier League goals at a side like Brentford where he absolutely had no right to score 20 goals last campaign. And then Ivan Toney is Premier League proven. So when you combine all those factors, and we'll talk about them later when it comes to Arsenal and deciding the price, when you combine all those factors, Brentford are were in a much better state and were in a much better selling position in the summer if anyone decided to buy Ivan Toney. But for me, it doesn't change in January. Many clubs will be looking at Ivan Toney as a reliable, proven striker, and that is Arsenal, and that is Chelsea as well. So the model and the profile of Ivan Toney, does it work for us? That's a big question as well. Does it work for us? Is Ivan Toney what Arsenal need? I can't confirm. I absolutely cannot confirm this because the profile of Toney and what we do as a club, those are two different requirements and those are two different profiles. I think the Arsenal system needs a player like Jesus. The Arsenal team system needs a player who can hunt defenders down, close them down, run, can dribble and can beat a man 1v1. That is not Ivan Toney. Actually, Ivan Toney is in the same profile as Romelu Lukaku, probably, right? Or maybe not Romelu Lukaku, but I would say Romelu Lukaku. But what Ivan Toney has over our strikers is the ability to finish, the ability to position himself in the penalty area and score the lazy chances that always go begging when Arsenal are playing, and the ability to give us an option in the air. So you've looked at games where Arsenal have to score a goal with their heads. Have we scored a goal with our head this campaign so far? Nottingham Forest? No. Fulham? No. No header there. Crystal Palace? No. Man United? No. Didn't score a header there as well. So that is what Ivan Toney would provide us, right? He would provide us with a secondary route, a secondary channel to score goals. That, especially when you play clubs that have that kind of low block, they sit back, they employ huge tall players in the at the back. You need someone who can push players out of position. You need someone who's very good and very prolific in the air, and that is Ivan Toney. But also his positioning as a striker, his awareness as a striker, his ability on the ball, by the way, as well, is fantastic. It's purely fantastic, and his hold-up play is not the worst in the world. I was going through the comment section. I think we were talking about Ivan Toney and Osimhen. And someone literally just said that Ivan Toney doesn't have the hold-up play a player like Evan Ferguson, a player like Jesus has. It's completely untrue. It's purely untrue. He's got the back-to-goal game, right? I think he's better than Ollie Watkins when it comes to, playing with his back, facing goal. I think, and he's better than so many strikers, and he's a proven striker. But is he what Arsenal need? There are questions to be answered there. There are questions to be answered, right? One, can he play at a big side? Like, that is always a question we've got to ask. That's a question that managers and scouts and the recruitment team has got to ask. Yes, he is a good player for Brentford, and yes, he was a good player for for Brentford. Yes, but can he do it at a much better side? Can he do it under pressure? Because when you sign for Arsenal, the role and the demands and the ambition must change. And they indeed change. So look at Declan Rice and what he's doing right now for Arsenal and how important he's become. But then look at his game. Look at how precise he is. Look at how clean he is. Look at how tidy he is and he's becoming as a footballer. Why? Because at Arsenal, you've got to be reliable. You've got to be on top of your game. You've got to be a top player for almost every time, every now and then. At West Ham, you could afford to have two, 3 bad performances in 10, or maybe 1 bad performance in 5, and it could go unnoticed. For example, I'll give you an example. The UEFA Conference League final, Declan Rice was absolutely and purely horrendous. He was purely outrun by Sofian Amrabat. But it could be excused, and at the end of the day, as long as you can celebrate the victory, and as long as you can win the game, it will go unnoticed. At Arsenal, that is not the same. So when Odegaard had a poor game against Tottenham Hotspur in the North London derby, we all said, oh, Odegaard was very, very poor. But that was one poor performance out of the 8 years played this campaign. So that's a big question for Toney. Can he come in at a side like Arsenal and deliver? Can he come in at a side like Arsenal and give us that kind of centre-forward leadership he's giving Brentford? Can he cope up with the pressure? I don't know his profile. I've not yet watched the video about where he talks to the diary of a CEO, and he explains what happened, the betting and everything. I've not seen the video yet. I've seen clips, but I've not watched the video. I want to give myself time to watch that video before I can get into his maybe character and personality as a person. But the number 2, it's a risk. We've got to agree. We've all got to agree, guys. It's a risk. And hit the like button if you think Ivan Toney is the perfect striker for us. Why I think it is a risk is this. By January, Arsenal will either be title contenders or not. So let us picture the situation where we are title contenders, right? A little picture in the air. We are title contenders, and we are chasing Manchester City with Erling Haaland, and we are chasing Liverpool with Cody Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, and Salah, and Luis Diaz. The power of Liverpool is the goals that come from everywhere. The power of Man City this season is goals that can come from one source, but they're defensively stingy. They're defensively astute, right? So when you picture into those two, Arsenal are a little bit behind. Defensively, we are becoming stingy, but not stingy to the extent that we had to score against. I don't think we had to score against. Mikel was talking about it. And I think we are conceding less opportunities, but the opportunities that we are conceding are going into the back of the net. Okay? So we are not as defensively strong as Man City, and we do not have a typical classic number 9 goal scorer poacher like Erling Haaland. And yet we have gone for this scattergun approach in terms of goals, and we are not as good as Liverpool because they have Salah, Jota, Gakpo, Diaz, and Núñez. So by the time we get to February, by the time we get to January, Arsenal will be looking to add one player that can change and determine the end of our campaign. Leandro Trossard almost did it last campaign, and I've got to give him a lot of credit because by the time he came in, he was absolutely needed and he delivered. So, can Ivan Toney come in January and decide where the title goes? Right? Can he come in January and score 10 goals? Can he come in January and score 12 goals? The gamble is he has not played for a long time. The gamble is he's not going to be playing football right from the end of last campaign until January this campaign. That is where the gamble is, right? That's where the gamble is. Unless Mikel is trying to convince us that, well, it's a long-term signing. We are not trying to bring in Ivan Toney as a short-term, title decider. Even if it doesn't deliver, we are looking at him for the next 5 years. Well, I would understand that, but it will be absolutely stupid and it would be absolutely nonsensical. Why? Because when you sign a player in January, you're literally going to pay a lot of money. One, Brentford would love to keep him. Two, Brentford are reluctant to sell. Even if they want to sell, they're reluctant. They're not under pressure, right? And three, there are not so many players available, so you don't have a lot of options. And Brentford will be looking at us as desperate. They'll be looking like, okay, Osimhen is not for sale in January, probably, or potentially. Who is for sale in January? No one. So therefore, give us the 90. So it's a risk. It's a big one. And I'm not really sure what Mikel Arteta is looking at in Ivan Toney's January transfer. Are we looking to beat the market, which would be smart if that is the move? But can we beat the market while paying a sensible price and also bringing in a striker that is going to impact the Arsenal season as we turn the corner? Is that player Ivan Toney? You guys talk to me in the comment box below. Yeah, talk to me. Is that guy Ivan Toney? Fabrizio says Arsenal are interested. And Arsenal have inquired about the availability and they have asked for the conditions of the Now, the second one is Victor Osimhen. And we're going to talk about Victor Osimhen for a second. I like Victor Osimhen. I really, really do. He's a composed finisher and he has matured at the time when the market is demanding for a mature number 9. So I think Madrid should be all over him. I think Real Madrid should be all over Victor Osimhen. I think Arsenal should be all over Victor Osimhen. I think Chelsea should be all over Victor Osimhen. And I think a club like Man United, instead of signing Rasmus Højlund, they should have gone and signed Victor Osimhen. They should have been all over Victor Osimhen. Osimhen is going to become one of the best number 9s in the next 5 years. He's already proven himself that he can perform under pressure. He's already proven himself that he can drive a team like Napoli that has not won the Scudetto in years, in tens of years. He delivered. He drove them to a UCL semi-final. He drove them to the first Scudetto ever since Maradona won it for them in many years. The guy is dead now. So, Osimhen for Arsenal. Osimhen in January. Could it happen? Do I prefer Osimhen to Ivan Toney? I don't. I really, really don't. I think I'll take either of them. I take either of them. Because when I look at Victor Osimhen, he has done it at Napoli. He's done it in Europe. So there is an added advantage and some pedigree there and experience. But he's not done it in the Premier League. Right? He's not done it in the Premier League. And the Premier League has its own set of demands. Forget Europe, guys. Forget all this. We have seen players come from the Champions League, from Champions League clubs, and they flop and they become disasters in the Premier League. The Premier League has its own prerequisites and has its own conditions. If you can meet them, then you are a top player in the Premier League. If you can't meet them, then you can't be a top player in the Premier League. So Victor Osimhen, what I like about him, young, kind of has that experience, but Aurelio De Laurentiis is not going to give us his Victor Osimhen at less than 100 million, and especially in January. Now, Arsenal could be looking to exploit the broken relationship between Napoli and Osimhen. So what happened, by the way, just to feed you in, when Victor Osimhen missed a penalty for Napoli, they mocked him with two videos. The one video is perceived to be not good in terms of in terms of equity, and the other video was literally mocking him as a striker missing a penalty. Like, can you imagine if Saka misses a penalty and Arsenal post and go, "Whoa, he just missed a penalty. Whoa, he's a disgrace." So that's what Napoli did, and Victor Osimhen is still asking for an apology from the team, which is yet to come, according to as far as I understand the matter. And I really don't have a lot of time for Napoli because I don't even support them. I'm a Milan boy. But what that actually does, and what that the kind of problem it creates for Aurelio De Laurentiis is he now has a problem. One, he wants to get 150 million euros from Victor Osimhen. But how do you command 150 million euros in a player whose relationship with the club has been broken, whose relationship with the club has been absolutely sabotaged? So that is where maybe Arsenal could find an advantage, that we could talk to Osimhen, convince him to join us, and convince him to rebel, like Trossard did against Brighton, and we could get him for a cut price. But even if it was a cut price, it would be 100 million. Right? It would be at least 100 million pounds for Victor Osimhen. So you choose your expensive deal, you choose your pain. 100 million for Victor Osimhen or 80 million for Ivan Toney. Where do we go? I'll just go with Toney, me. Personally, I'll just go with Ivan Toney. And I know we are going to clash about this in the comment section with you guys, but I'll just go with Toney. It's the same. Two expensive guys that are still a gamble. Both of them are still a gamble. I think Ivan Toney is a gamble of his own caliber, and Victor Osimhen is a gamble in his own caliber as well. So I think either way, you choose your pain, you choose how much you want to pay, and you get an overly rated striker. If he works out, then the gamble pays off. If he doesn't work out, you know what to do. You sell him off, you ship him off. Okay, Akari says Arsenal should go for Evan Ferguson. Well, Evan Ferguson is in the mix, and he is in the conversation. But if you're going to go for Evan Ferguson, we forget about two things. One, it's not January. Yeah, Brighton don't like disruption as a business strategy. And what Arsenal did recently is we have used disruption to try to sign Moises Caicedo, and we eventually ended up not signing him at the moment. So I don't think Evan Ferguson is a January fix. I don't think Evan Ferguson would come in January. Do we need a striker in January anyway? I mean, that's a question. Do we need a striker in January anyway, right? Because we could wait until this summer and explore a couple of options. Dali says the difference is the age between Toney and Osimhen. Well, yeah, there is an age difference, but we know the longevity of strikers these days. We know that strikers can go up to 33. We know that strikers can go up to 35 scoring goals, right? If you gave me Robert Lewandowski last campaign, I would take him. If you give me Robert Lewandowski this campaign, I would still take him, right? So the longevity is there. I'm not really concerned about the price, about the age. Arsenal FC says Ivan Toney would be great as an option. Manguia says better to get Ivan Toney. Okari says Arsenal should get Ferguson. Saspo says Cossy, what if we go in for Victor Osimhen? Expensive deal. He's proven that he can be a good player, by the way, Victor Osimhen. So credit and kudos to him. But it would be an expensive deal, and it's one where we might not do it in January because Aurelio De Laurentiis and Napoli will be looking to maximize their profit. They'll be looking to maximize the amount of money they get from this deal. And honestly, that would be in the summer rather than in January, because in the summer, Madrid would be addressing their striker problems. Chelsea would be looking to address their striker problems. And Spurs will be looking to address their striker problems as well. So clubs know that you get more money in the summer because there are so many, suitors, and there's so many clubs trying to buy as compared to January, right? And clubs always have money in the summer, like they're always big spenders in the summer as compared to January. Okay, Emmanuel says Victor Osimhen is better than all strikers in Europe. Well, statistically, he's not, but from a subjective point of view, he is for you. And I wouldn't really argue because you look at his market value, you look at what he provides as a player, as a young striker, by the way, and you also look at the kind of goals he scores. He's definitely top five. He's definitely top five for me. Yeah, he's definitely top five. Softball says, "Good morning, Cossy. I'm watching in from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I think Toney will be a good boost up front. Yeah, provide something different. I think that's what we all want. Provide something different. Can score a header. He's ruthless. He's clinical, and he's a bully. I like a bully in a striker, by the way, guys. I really, really do. I like a bully in a striker. And that's why when I did the show with Webb on the striker situation, I said I like Rasmus Højlund because Rasmus Højlund has got that bullish element in his game. Maybe not the clinical striker that Man United would have hoped for, Hurricane standards, but not a bad one as well. Ronnie says, "I like the way you explain these things to us." Thank you so much, Ronnie, by the way. Dixon says, "Ivan Toney has got the ability to win as trophies, no doubt. Rely. Just imagine if Gabriel Jesus scored 25 goals last campaign. But Jesus picked up an injury as well. We've got to agree. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Jesus is a 25 goal machine. Like, with all due respect, he's a moments guy. You remember, you see the goal he scored against Man United and the goal he scored against PSV. Those are not typical number 9 goals. Those are beautiful goals, right? So you find that Dusan Vlahovic or Hurricane will not score any of those goals. Like, he doesn't find himself, scoring any of those goals. Why? Because he literally positions himself to score the easy ones. And Jesus scores the hard ones and misses the easy ones. And probably that makes him not a top striker. Ronnie says, "Anyway, we made a good decision not to sign Moses Caicedo." Yeah, I don't think we really made a good decision. I think we made a better decision to sign Rice. But I don't think Caicedo is a bad player. I'll tell you this. If you put Caicedo at Liverpool, right, he went to Chelsea because of the money. He went to Chelsea because they offered a bigger paycheck. I don't even care about whether, he's a Chelsea fan. This guy has said he's an Arsenal fan. This guy has said he's a Chelsea fan. This guy has said he's a fan of every club. So I think he went there because of the paycheck, and he didn't foresee the problems and how deep the shit Chelsea was stuck in. But if you put him in a proper Liverpool side right now, if you put him in a proper Arsenal side right now, you'd get a much better player in Moses Caicedo. I understand there is banter, and yeah, he's really, really struggling at the moment. But I don't think he's a bad player. Nowhere near there. Nowhere near him being a bad player. Jaffet says Ivan Toney would be a better choice because he's familiar with the Premier League. All right. Coming in from Namibia. Shout out to the people in Namibia. Lots of love. The Premier League experience has always been a premium, right? Like, signing a player from the Premier League has always been exciting, and has always been reassuring that the player is really going to work out. Esma 212 says, "Our mistake is not signing Amrabat. He was better than Declan Rice and way cheaper." Better than Declan Rice, I disagree. Cheaper, I agree. I think with Sofyan Amrabat, you have a good player. But with Declan Rice, you have an all-round midfielder. I think, this is what I was saying. Amrabat has got limitations to his game. Declan Rice has no limitation to his game. Okay, that is over-exaggerated, but you get the point. I think Rice has a bigger ceiling, a higher ceiling, a bigger future in football as compared to Sofyan Amrabat. Look, if you're just looking for a defensive midfielder who can play the ball side to side and can also, chip in with some good runs occasionally, you go for Sofyan Amrabat. But if you're looking for a midfield general, it's Declan Rice. No questions. It's Declan Rice. Okay. Cossy, no doubt. Ivan Toney, Jesus up front can be better for Arsenal than now because the two can play together. Yep, different profiles. Jesus can shift on the right, shift on the left, and Ivan Toney, that kind of rigid number 9, causing problems for defenders. Yeah, the two can play together. I hear on that one. Frank says Toney will be good for Arsenal. All right, okay. Let's see what some of you are saying as well before we get this one out of the way as well. Arsenal FC says don't seem to trust Nketiah that much. I cannot lie that I love Eddie because he's not on the right on the good side of my books. I don't have a problem with Eddie Nketiah. I just think Eddie should have followed the same route as Florian Balogun. And Mikel Arteta here just made a huge move and a huge statement. If you sell off Florian Balogun because for whatever reason, not good enough, not good quality, whatever reason, if you sell him off, then typically you've got to sell Eddie Nketiah. Because those two guys don't have a... There's no difference between... there's no difference between the two. Eddie, not a top striker at the moment. Balogun, not a top striker at the moment. If you ask me who has the ability to become a top striker sooner or later, for me it's Florian Balogun, right? So it's not like I don't like Eddie. I would be okay to watch him the way I watch Welbeck at Brighton. I do support Welbeck at Brighton. I don't have him in my fantasy Premier League. That is how much I don't rate them. And I've never thought about Eddie Nketiah getting into my fantasy Premier League. That is how much I don't rate them. However, on the other side, Ivan Toney last season was in my fantasy Premier League. And Evan Ferguson this season is in my fantasy Premier League. So it's just that it's not that I don't like him. I just don't rate him. I think there's a difference. There's a huge difference. I don't rate him as a striker, but don't have a problem with him as a man, as a person, not really. Emmanuel says, what happened with Emile Smith-Rowe and Mikel? This guy, I love him to play at left 8. I don't think Emile Smith-Rowe plays left 8. I don't think he is comfortable, and I don't think he loves to play left 8. He wants to play left wing. Okay, and after 499 days without playing football or without starting a single game, it was always going to take some confidence, courage, and necessity, and for him to push to get back in the starting lineup. Imagine you want to play as a striker, or you want to play as a left winger. You have Trossard ahead of you, you have Martinelli ahead of you, and you have Kai Havertz, who's also a new signing. So you've got to work harder. You've got to prove it to the manager that you're worth it. That you're worth the minutes. And I think that's what he's done. And we're going to see Emile Smith-Rowe much more often than not. Okay, Frank says, Toney is the only striker to have bullied Saliba. He is that good. Wow. Yeah, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. And we're going to close the show at that one, right? Let's close the show at that one. He's the only striker to bully Saliba, to have bullied Saliba. And therefore, he is actually that good. Emmanuel says that we made a mistake selling Balogun. He is better than Eddie Nketiah. Good morning, guys. We are talking about the strikers incident at Arsenal, where we are interested in Ivan Toney. Presumably, Arsenal would love to get him in January. Chelsea would love to get him in January as well. Prince says no sound. We cannot stream for 38 minutes without sound, unless otherwise. James says, I want Arsenal to sign Toney and sell Eddie Nketiah. Could Eddie Nketiah be part of the deal? Could Eddie Nketiah be an option on the other way? Well, probably. Right, probably. Eddie can't help us, Cossy. We need hungry goal scorers like Toney, says Joseph, and James says, we should sell Eddie and sign Ivan Toney. Well, that depends on Mikel, because Mikel is a big fan of Eddie Nketiah. Like, he's a huge fan of the guy. And you think about selling him, you think about annoying Mikel Arteta. I'll speak to you right in the next one. We have, it's match day, obviously. We play Bournemouth, and I'll be doing the player ratings, fan cams, and a couple of other, stuff and content coming your way. Speak to you right in the next one.